if you jump in if you want to. So
Don't
that's
worry,
how
I will.
that's my overview of honesty. Is there such a thing as TMI? Yes.
TMI too soon.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about that. What is and isn't TMI?
Did you push record?
Thank you so much for tuning into Second Act TV. I am so happy that you're joining me today because joining us again for talking about love and relationships after 50 is Treva Brandon Scharf and her husband, Robby Scharf. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you. It's great to
Thank
be
you.
back. We love you.
Well, I love you, and our audience loves you. Some of the video, our previous segments are actually trending, have been this week. We will link to all of those, our great discussions on online dating, how you two met, just the Reader's Digest version, Robby and Treva. They met after 50, so they were both single until 50, met online. They are dating experts, dating... what interventionists I think you call yourself. So we will link to all that information so you do get the first segments we did. And what I want to really move into now is, we've gotten past the online stuff and all that is involved. Now you're actually out meeting face to face, and that brings a whole other set of challenges with it. So you wrote an article about that on your blog. We'll link to that as well, Treva, but about what is too much information and what should you share on the first date? Let's talk about that. Why is that such a challenge, especially at this time in our life?
Okay, so just to preface everything, I am a big believer in honesty. Okay, I am all for full disclosure within reason and with some pacing and some parsing. Okay. Listen, eventually it's all going to come out. Okay. But, and it's okay if it comes out, but you do want to have it come out, a little at a time so that you don't freak someone out or scare them away. I also want to say that at this age, when you get into your 50s and 60s, you have baggage. We all have stuff going on. No one is perfect. Everyone's flawed. That's not a bad thing. In fact, I happen to find flaws kind of beautiful and attractive and compelling. I think, gives people depth and character and gives you something to, sink your teeth into. You don't want someone that's so phony and so perfect that there's no there. So if you jump in if you want to. So
Don't worry, I will.
that's my overview of honesty. Is there such a thing as TMI? Yes.
TMI too soon.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about that. What is and isn't TMI? We did a segment with another dating coach, and one of their recommendations was, put your worst foot forward, even on the first date, because when we're older, we don't want to waste any time. Just put it all out there. If it's not going to go, it's not going to go. I kind of get that, but then I kind of don't. Let's talk about some specifics as to what you may or may not want to disclose, or.
Okay. TMI would be too much information about your ex, too much information about
I think
oversharing about your evil ex-wife or your your ugly divorce and or stuff having to do with stuff that's go ahead.
no, I think that there's a couple of subjects that you really, I think, should avoid early on when you're with somebody brand new, and that is politics, exes. Uh, these are the most important thing, and probably religion too, because those are conversation turners. And if that conversation is turned and goes south because of any one of those subjects, your relationship does not have a chance to really get on track.
Disagree.
Okay.
Interesting.
We're talking about a first date. I'm not talking about a second date or a third date, but I think that the first date, you really want to just eyeball each other and find out about the chemistry there without going into these sensitive subjects that people may have some passionate opinions
No,
about.
I don't view politics and religion or your personal or your values or your beliefs as being TMI. To me,
Wrong.
it's not TMI, it's who you are. It's what you believe in. It's your value system. I mean, you are your politics. Why wouldn't you want to say, hey, this is what I do, this is who I am, this is kind of how I, lean. No, TMI is like negative. It's that's how that was what I was saying about trashing, negativity, bad mouthing, shit talking. That is just, I don't want to hear it.
Okay,
Okay.
let me.
But your politics and your religion and that's okay. I want to hear that.
I want to hear it too, but I think I agree with what you're saying is that TMI is talking about too much about personal stuff about yourself.
Yes.
And in that you want to hold that back. You don't want to divulge that too soon.
Well,
But again, these are conversation turners. This is going to turn the conversation and it could get dark. And from there, where do you go? And it may really sour somebody new on you.
Okay.
But any of those subjects could do that.
But fine.
Well,
But
especially at this,
sooner
especially at this
than later.
day.
I think it's better to know that a little later than the first date. The first date, you want to see it. Who are we? Do I like you? Do you like me? Do I need to know exactly who you voted for in the last election?
Yes.
This is I love this because as divisive as this situation is, as we're recording this video, I definitely, and I don't want to get into that where we all know where we stand. I mean, relationships are breaking up over this. So to me, I think I'd want to know first, right away who I'm getting in bed with, if you will, or eventually. But maybe is that wrong? Am I preventing maybe a beautiful relationship? It's very interesting, especially now.
I think it's wrong. I think it's premature to get into certain subjects before you can really find out who that person is.
I think it also would make for a spirited first date.
No.
Right?
It would definitely, it could be a very short one.
But I think that's all you will end up having are spirited first dates. And if you don't want to have a second date, go ahead and do that.
You're not going in and sitting down and saying, "So, who'd you vote for last?"
Well, but I think
are you crazy?
Right, but once
you
do
get
that,
around to that.
No, but once you do that, it's so hard to kind of
you have some foreplay before
go
that.
back. You can't undo that.
You can't undo that. That's true.
All right. Well, so my definition of TMI is, as I said, bad mouthing your ex, too much information about your past.
Agree. Totally agree.
TMI can also include too much too soon about your personal health issues. Okay, that needs to be parsed out. That needs to be kind of, paced because it's like a little too honest too soon, but within, like I said, in time, you want to share that. And if the person, and you'll know when that time is right. It also requires the person to take some ownership and not have shame around whatever that personal issue is.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not health, or maybe it's financial, maybe it's professional. Eventually if you hang out with that person long enough, you're going to find out.
Well, and that also brings an interesting thought is that let's say you don't discuss what we're talking about initially, and you get hot and heavy with the person and you're making out, and then all of a sudden something comes up and you said, and it could be political in nature, and the person goes, "Oh, I love that guy." And all of a sudden you're or like, and that's a turnoff right at that moment, right before you're making out with that person. And so either you're going to find that out later at that point, or you're going to find out earlier. What's your preference? Do you want to find out immediately?
I think, let me just jump in. I think maybe there are some issue like with health or financial or, former whatever exes, that those are things you can maybe overcome if you've developed a fondness with this person where,
Right.
on the first date, no, that could be an immediate turn off. But it is walking it's a fine line. What do you disclose if it will eventually significantly affect a long-term arrangement?
There can be no fondness if you're turned off. I really
Yeah,
believe
but there
that.
can be
So,
compassion if once you do find out something about the person you're dating, and there's compassion and understanding, but that's further along. That's many dates in.
but then there's subjects that you can be compassionate about, such as uh, uh, illnesses in the family or issues with kids or something. These are things that you can overcome because it's not necessarily this person. It is what that person is dealing with.
Well, look,
So,
if you care enough or you like that person enough or you're interested or compelled enough by that person, anything is pretty much overcomeable, even, crazy in-laws. Which, by the way, I'm going to just say I wasn't fully disclosure on, some of my parents, my mom and stuff. So, my mother is, she's a bigger than life person. And so I didn't want to, how do I describe
scare
it?
me.
So anyway, what was the other thing I was going? Oh, about back to health. I have a friend. In fact, that was the article that you read in the blog post I wrote about TMI. I referenced there's a friend of mine that dated a guy who eventually told her that he was bipolar.
Right.
But it took so many dates and so many missed opportunities and so much frustration and pain and heartbreak for her because there was something wrong, and he wasn't being straight up with her. And so, it ended really badly because once he did admit to it that he had mental health issues, it could have been handled a whole bunch better, but he was embarrassed. And because he wasn't straight with her, led her on and then ghosted and then came back. And it was like advanced retreat, made her crazy, made her nuts. And then by the time he said, well, I'm bipolar, it was too late. And I had a little issue with that.
Yeah, that really opened my eye when I read that. And that's what I told you. I think that this is an interesting subject because you do have the lighter or, not so light topics like politics. But when you really have something that is deep inside you, such as some sort of mental, very treatable bipolar, of course, how do you, when do you disclose that? How do you handle that? I mean, I have friends that have similar issues. And they're not. It's this particular one I'm thinking of is a guy. He's just hesitant to date. It's just nobody's ever gonna want me. Nobody's ever. He's a great guy, and that's really got me thinking. When you carry something like that, or some deep financial, or something that's really big, how do you handle that?
I have the same woman that I talked about in my post. Also has had a bunch of first or second dates where bombs were dropped on her, like crazy bombs, truth bombs that were courageous of the guy, but it was such a turnoff for her and it was insurmountable. They didn't leave enough time. They didn't give it enough time to develop.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result, there was nothing, she didn't build anything with them to create some compassion and some love around the situation. It actually served as an out for her, an exit. So it's a little bit of a balancing act, how much you reveal and how soon. You just have to sense it from the person, feel a sense of comfort and safety. And even then you won't know, but you just have to trust your instincts, I think. And then again, going back to the ownership of whatever it is. So maybe you don't have a job, or maybe you're living with your ex.
Mm-hmm.
Or both.
Or maybe you've got
Not necessarily uncommon,
which
especially
is not uncommon.
Right.
And again, at this age, who doesn't have something.
Right.
Maybe you don't speak to your kids. Maybe there's that, maybe there's trauma. Maybe there's something. Everybody's got something. The sooner you get comfortable with it, I find, the sooner you own it and release the shame around it, the better and easier it will be for you to disclose it when that time is appropriate.
That makes sense. No, and that's a great conversation. And in a 15-minute segment, or what we do, there's no answers per se, but to me, it's important to raise the awareness around that. I don't know that we think enough about those initial conversations and how they can affect how you move forward. So I guess for me, that's what I want to leave our viewers with is, think about that. If you're in that position, if you go on first, if you have a lot of first dates, they don't turn into second, I don't know. Think about those initial conversations. Are you, giving too much information or not enough? In closing, what would you guys leave our viewers with?
Well, I think that it's a two-way street in that if you are offering too much information, it's something to be sensitive about. If you are asking somebody about something that might be personal, it's also something that you have to be sensitive, because if the person is not prepared to answer that, have you already ventured into an area that you have to withdraw from? I think there is like a center of acceptable communicative subjects that are fine, and then there's an outer ring, and then you have to be very careful, I think.
Oh, we have a friend who was on a third date. The guy told her on date 3, he's a recovering cocaine addict, sober for 25 years. Okay, this was not mentioned in date 1, 2. 3, I'm sober for 25 years and I've got ED.
Okay.
Now,
well, that's probably a good time to know.
How did it get to the second date without having a drink? Without talking about that?
I don't know. Okay. He didn't bring it up.
Or how about ED?
So are you saying that was too early or too late to bring it up?
ED didn't come up.
How did it get past the second day without talking about ED? All right,
because it didn't come up.
Hello. That's a joke.
Well, we're laughing about that now. I want to just acknowledge that is huge in our demographic, and it's not funny in terms of dealing with it. And there's so many different ways to deal with it. And we have lots of videos on that too. Well, I'm going to close out this segment, hold you over for the next step, which is, so you've gotten past this initial stuff. Now, when do you decide to become intimate? Another big topic. We will link to all of your information, to your blogs, to your fabulous podcast, Done Being Single with Treva. I almost said Robby and Treva. You hate that. With Treva and Robby. And we'll see you on our next episode of Second Act TV. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right over here. Just click on through to YouTube, and when you see that little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too. You'll be notified every time we launch a new video. See you next time.